All right, we will call Committee of the Whole to order. And we've got 2 items on the agenda tonight. The appointment for our soon-to-be vacated at-large seat, as well as items related to downtown development. And then the third thing, which is approval of the minutes from the November 11th Committee of the Whole. And I will move to approve without the necessity of a reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes. So we're going to take the appointment item first, Resolution 2024-71. And all council members should be in possession of the 12 applications that we received, as well as the spreadsheet. And we have a lot to get through tonight in this Committee of the Whole. So without objection, I'm going to just go ahead and move that the committee enter executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G, for the purpose of considering the appointment of a public official. Included in that motion are council staff and the law department.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none. Do we need a roll call for executive session? Why can't I ever remember that? We do. Maureen's giving me a thumbs up. All right. So Evans.
Aye.
Marks. Aye. Keppel. Aye. Baker.
Aye.
Bullock.
Yes.
Liebig.
Aye.
All right, and we'll head back to the conference room. All right, so we'll re-enter open session. Without objection, I will ask the clerk of council to schedule interviews with the following candidates: Allison Urbanek, Angelina Steiner, Angela Klunk, Nicole Greenfield, Alex Bonacuse, and Becky Mahovic. All right, so we are on to our next couple docket items regarding the downtown development. We're trying to save the bulk of our time. We have a lot to talk about with downtown development for that. I know we have both public-facing slides, and we'll have some stuff we'll need to discuss in executive session. What I'm hoping to do is see if we can get as quickly as we can into the detailed parts that we'll need to probably discuss in executive session. So we've had, I don't know if you want to go, Director Byington and Assistant Director Boss, which slide deck you want to go through first, or how you want to. Okay, and Director Boss, I think we can probably jump. I know you had a lot of the where we've been, but if we can kind of jump quickly to where we are as much as possible, that'd be great. Sorry to jump. We were trying to get to this as much as we can.
No, I appreciate it, Madam President. If you just pull up those slides, we'll just go to the if you go to the process schedule slide. Everybody's seen everything else, I think, should be familiar with. But since this was the first committee meeting, kind of post submission of the final package, I included everything in here. Yeah, so I should be familiar. Hopefully everyone's familiar with this slide by now. Here we are there on the blue diamonds with the yellow halo. Thank you. For December 2nd. You've seen the development plan, the final PD plan. You've seen the plat. And then that's associated with the first ordinance, that ordinance 20, TAC 2024, for the rezoning and the actual approval of the PD plan. For the ordinance 21, 2024, and ordinance 22, 2024, both the development agreement draft and the compensation agreement draft were provided on Wednesday. So hopefully everybody got those. And I just want to make a point that those are draft. And so there's items that we're down to probably like 3 or 4 items, I think, that are being finalized. And I think it's a good point to bring those into discussion. And I just want to also make the point, the draft that was provided to council in executive session back in that meeting on the 21st of October. I think in substance and in kind of form, the development agreement really hasn't changed a whole lot. That was about a 80%, 70 to 80% draft. That the discussion points that have gone back and forth on the development agreement between the administration and Casto have just kind of tightened that in from about 70 to now we're at about 95, 98%, really down to those final points, and we can talk through those as well as the substance of the whole agreement. The development of the compensation agreement was really led, by the administration, our council, and really the council for the school district. And so that draft, with that kind of three-way discussion between Casto, the administration, and the school district, that is also, it is in draft form. It is being considered by the Board of Ed tonight. But that kind of rides, it corresponds directly to the development agreement, if that makes sense, the terms that are in development agreement. So I'm not trying to, don't want to overcomplicate it, but those things are all drafts. They're about as close as they're going to get right now until we hammer them out. and finally approve them with the assistance of council. So if you go to the next slide here.
Sorry, just to clarify, so the compensation agreement with the schools is still in draft? They're
Well,
not voting on
everything's a
it?
draft until it's approved. It has to be approved by the Board of Education.
And they're potentially doing that tonight, or
Their first reading is tonight.
first reading tonight?
And so that, from what I understand, yeah, they're going to have a reading tonight, and then they did schedule another meeting on the 16th. And so that is, as I understand, all things go smoothly, that they should be approving that compensation agreement on the 16th.
And then procedurally, do they have to do that first, or are we able to do both on the 16th?
You can do, yeah, they can approve it, you could approve it. There's three parties to that, so and anyone can approve, before the other. So at least I'm not trying to be overly formal with it, we're just trying to get it accomplished. So I think we can get into I've got the PD plan, the lot split. If there's questions on that, we can get into that to answer those. But the two drafts have been provided. And then just to reiterate the process and kind of we've gone from macro now to micro in terms of the meeting schedules, and here we are, the committee of the whole there in yellow on the 2nd of December to get to cover everything, the three ordinances and their substantive exhibits in detail, get the second reading on all of those ordinances, and hopefully still driving towards consideration of approval at the full council meeting and the Board of Ed for the compensation agreement on the 16th. So that's really all just in terms of a procedure for open session. And so I think we're prepared to talk in greater detail on both the development agreement, the compensation agreement, and executive session, so we can hammer those things out and get them done. So.
And Director Barrington, did you have any slides for a public? Okay.
Thank you, Madam President, members of council. I do have slides ready to go. They should be after his. Thank you. And in an effort to be brief, so we can move on, I'll try to just hit the major points for anybody that's watching, any of the residents, some of the key terms in the development agreement. So I won't go over the details on the project, as Assistant Director Boss has gone through those numerous times. And as, thank you. So some key terms of the development agreement is that the developer complete the project as approved by Planning Commission and the Architectural Board of Review, which included 25,000 square feet of commercial space, 285 residential units, with 20% to be affordable per the city CRA requirements, construction of a parking garage, construction of a community plaza, preservation of the Curtis Block, and that public access be retained for the plaza, linear park, pocket park, and for pedestrian vehicular access. Also, within the document, there's requirements for public art. The developer will work with the city through its Public Art Advisory Board to identify and implement or financially support opportunities for public art, including but not limited to murals, lighting, sculptures, seasonal and annual temporary installations. A section on sustainability. The developer agrees to explore and incorporate economically feasible sustainability and energy measures, minority business, enterprises, female, women business, enterprises, disadvantaged business, enterprises, and small business enterprises. The developer will undertake commercially reasonable efforts to adhere to and require 25% participation by these enterprises. Building trades, the developer will use commercially reasonable efforts to work with the Cleveland Building and Construction Trades Council. Wage requirement, they will provide reasonable efforts to ensure that laborers and mechanics are employed on the project are paid at prevailing rates, wage rates. And then as far as the timeline, that is one of the things that we will talk about a little bit more in the executive session. But in the agreement, there are timelines set for when they have to apply for their building permits, after the building permits are issued, when they have to start construction, and then how many months they have after they start construction to receive a certificate of occupancy, which would be the completion of the project. As far as the economic incentives that are provided for within the development agreement, they include the establishment of a 30-year 100% non-school tax increment financing district, where the schools would be provided the dollar amount that they would have received in new taxes, and that would be in accordance with the mutually approved school compensation agreement. The TIF will be subordinate to a proposed CRA. The CRA there would be one on the multifamily component, and then there would also be, there would just be one there. But the compensation agreement speaks to all three components of the plan, which includes multifamily, commercial retail, and parking. Again, I am skimming over some stuff. If there's anything you want to stop me at, feel free to, and I can explain it in more detail. As far as the school compensation agreement, as Assistant Director Boss stated, that's pretty much it's in final form, but it's not final until it's approved by the school. Additional items that the school compensation agreement calls out that aren't directly in the development agreement are that excess TIF funds. So any TIF funds that are generated and received in addition to what was projected, 1/3 of the amounts would be split. The new school levies, if there are any new school levies approved, they shall receive, they being the school, the amount that was equal to what they should have received for any new levies. And construction income tax sharing, the city shall pay the school 1/2 of income tax collected by the city from contractors working on the project site. Further, the compensation agreement requires 50% of all income taxes levied and collected by the city on payroll on the site to be paid to the district through and concluding with the tax year under which the TIF is terminated. Further, for each tax year that the CRA is in effect, in the event that tax revenues received by the school district from multifamily and commercial retail components are less than income tax payments received by the city shall split those and make them whole for that amount. There is a couple other economic incentives. One is the loan agreement that would come before council for final approval with the terms. We're working with the finance director on that at this time. The loan amount would be for $5 million, and that would be to assist in the construction of the parking garage, as well as a CRA application that would be submitted to the housing officer in regard to 100% abatement for 15 years on the multifamily portion of the project. I'm sure that most of you have already seen this graphic. It's from Director Leiniger, so I won't go in detail, but basically this just shows that the existing property taxes, the base taxes, will continue to be paid out through the term of the 30 years of the TIF. And then you'll see the CRA tax abatement goes to year 15, and then starting at year 16, it's just the TIF is what prevails. So during the first 15 years, the CRA tax abatement is primary, and the TIF is subordinate to the tax abatement. So the legislation that is before you now is, as Assistant Director Boss said, the planned development. You have the development agreement, the school compensation agreement, and then in the near future, there'll be an application for a TIF and a CRA. That was a very quick version.
Get it. Council members, questions that you'd like to ask at this? Yep, Councilman Bullock.
Thanks. That was a helpful presentation, Director. I'm trying to make sure I have all of what you covered in writing somewhere so that I can refer to it and just make sure I understand what's being proposed here. I don't know that. Do we have this or no, or we're going to refer to it
I
further?
can give you a copy of my
Okay.
presentation or my notes, but
Thanks. So in other words, those are the high points on what is being considered in the first reading version tonight by the school board, right?
yes.
Okay. Okay. And there's some new important features there that I'm hearing about the first time. I'd like to just make sure I understand.
Sure. I could
You know,
go
I don't know
back
if
to
we wanna
that slide.
Go into it later or now, but, especially there's some new terms after the CRA expires, so I believe that means year 16 and to 30, right?
Yeah, in year 16, the CRA would be expired and the TIF would prevail at that point. And again, it's a non-school TIF, so they'll be paid what they would be receiving in new taxes, in addition to the base taxes that they'll continue to receive during the 30 years. Does it,
Well, there's more, but we don't have time right now, but I just, I want to basically just be able to refer to the full checklist and understand completely kind of the anatomy of the proposed shared revenue agreement. Thanks.
Can I just ask a question, just for clarification? You have a copy of the development agreement, the compensation agreement, don't you, that was provided on Wednesday?
Yes.
Okay, and you had a copy from 21 October, because the terms really haven't changed, the financials haven't changed. So I just want to make sure that we're all looking at the same documents.
I think the school compensation component was new right before
It is new, 'cause-
Thanksgiving. Yeah, so I think those are probably where the questions are
Okay.
mostly targeted. And, as far as the development agreement, I recognize it's close to the same, but it's also not final, so we, have a responsibility to make sure that we're looking over the actual final agreement when we get it. And we only have one more meeting after tonight currently scheduled to review that final development agreement that we don't have. So, but based on that, does anybody else have questions that they'd like to ask at this time before we head into executive session? All right. So I will move that the committee enter executive session with relevant members of the administration, its financial and legal advisors, council staff, and the developer pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 12122G for the purpose of considering confidential information related to the marketing plans, specific business strategy, production techniques, trade secrets, or personal financial statements of an applicant for economic development assistance and to consider the sale of property.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion?
Chair. In line with some of the earlier discussions in this, because I work for a property tax funded organization, and to avoid the appearance of a conflict of interest, I will not be joining executive session. But I'll be listening to all the public sessions very intently, so thank you.
Thank you. All right, on the motion to enter executive session, any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll do roll call. Councilmember Evans?
Aye.
Marks? Keppel, aye. Baker?
Abstain.
Bullock?
Aye.
Strebe?
Aye.
All right, we'll head back to the conference room. All right, we will, exiting executive session from Committee of the Whole. I have one motion to make, which is I'll move to authorize and instruct the clerks to insert updated exhibits for the legislation before Committee of the Whole regarding downtown development, which would be Ordinance 2024, Ordinance 21, 2024, and Ordinance 22, 2024.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. We have no further business before Committee of the Whole, so Committee of the Whole, without objection, is adjourned. We will take a few minutes just to get ourselves together before we start full council. So if we could be back, let's say 5 minutes, so that'd be 7:39.
I'm taking Brittany now. We just hired our new person today that was going to be replacing me. I wanted to show her kind of how this process works. Mariah's going to testify. So should be.
Well, then I have outstanding information. So normally I'd be there, but I just can't.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Hey, Will, how are you? Can you mean text me? Can you hear me? What's going on? Yeah, I was just heading out to council. I'm sitting here on the dais. Start in about 2 minutes. What's up? We'll have to get together soon. Take it one of these days. Figure it out. But yeah, I'll give you a ring maybe in the next couple of days. It's Monday. It'll be meetings. We'll talk to you later, man. Take care, bye. Oh, that's not.
Yep.
Oh, smart of you.
They're here to say. This is what we. Yeah. Well, I really feel, they sent us, they
All right, apologies, folks, a little technical difficulty. So we'll call to order the December 2nd meeting of council. If you're able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll now pause for a moment of silence. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Baker.
Here.
Bullock.
Here.
Evans.
Here.
Keppel.
Here.
Marks. Rader.
Here.
Strebig.
Here.
Reading and disposal of the minutes of the regular meeting of council held November 18th, 2024.
Move to approve without the necessity of a reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes. Without objection, would like to move item 2022 to the top, and then items 19 and 20.
Item 22, Resolution 2024-75, a resolution to highlight the 16 Days of Activism campaign, an annual initiative of Zonta International that raises awareness and advocates for an end to violence against women and girls.
All right, so I will first move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. And then for discussion, I'll just kick us off by saying that we received a communication from Zonta International, the Zonta Club of Cleveland, inviting us to participate in the 16 Days of Activism, which is an annual international initiative that raises awareness and advocates for an end to violence against women and girls. And we were going to ask the clerk if you would mind reading the resolution.
Resolution 2024-75, a resolution to highlight the 16 Days of Activism campaign, an annual initiative of Zonta International that raises awareness and advocates for an end to violence against women and girls. Whereas gender-based violence is a pervasive and persistent problem that impacts the health and safety of women and girls worldwide, taking many forms from domestic abuse to intimate partner violence, sexual assault, and more. And whereas the ever-present threat of violence has a chilling effect on women and girls, we're forced to maintain a state of vigilance that limits them and their opportunities for bodily autonomy, travel, education, speech, and manner of dress, preventing them from being full and free global citizens. And whereas violence against women is both a global and a local problem. According to World Health Organization, estimated 736 million women, almost 1 in 3, have been subjected to physical and or sexual intimate partner violence, non-partner sexual violence, or both at least once in their life. And whereas according to the most recent statistics, 755 per 100,000 Ohio residents experienced domestic violence in 2023, and the rate of stalking crimes in Ohio increased by 31.7% between 2016 and 2022, with the majority of victims being female in both cases. And whereas in response to these persistent trends, each year since 2012, Zonta International leads a 16 Days of Activism campaign from November 25th through December 10th to raise awareness and catalyze action around violence against women. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City of Lakewood, Ohio, that this council and mayor hereby support the important work of Zonta International to prevent and end violence against women in all of its forms and recommits to policies, protections, and initiatives that prevent and end gender-based violence in our community. That this council and mayor encourage the public to get involved and learn more about gender-based violence during the 16 Days of Activism and beyond. That this council and administration would like to emphasize that hope and healing from domestic violence are possible. Free and confidential services are available through Journey Center for Safety and Healing, Cuyahoga County's most comprehensive domestic violence agency.
Thank you. Colleagues, other discussion or comments? Councilwoman Striebeck.
Thank you, President Keppel, Councilmember Marks, and Mayor George for supporting this resolution to observe Zonta International's 16 Days of Activism to end violence against women and girls. The United Nations defines violence against women as any act of gender-based violence that results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, or mental harm or suffering to women, including threats of such acts, coercion, or arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether occurring in public or in private life. Brutal acts of rape, human trafficking, female genital mutilation, and femicide must end, as well as early childhood and forced marriage, cyberbullying, stalking, harassment, and intimidation. I call on every citizen, male and female, to end this targeted abuse, report these crimes, and protect girls and women in our community and around the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Marks.
Thank you. And I want to thank Zonta for bringing this to our attention. I think it's such a very important topic, and I believe that we as citizens of Lakewood need to start having conversations with young girls in our families, friends, to let them know what is acceptable treatment for a female in our society. And I'm very proud that we as a city are bringing this resolution forward, making this public statement to protect young, not only women, but young girls in the community from any act of violence and give them a voice and take a stand to protect their rights. So thank you, Zonta, for bringing this forward, and we partner with you in protecting the females in our planet. Thank you.
Thank you. Other colleagues? All right. Do we have anyone signed in to speak? Or I believe we have someone here from Journeys. Did you want to make a comment? Megan, you're welcome to, if you want to come up to the microphone here. If you push the button, it'll turn green. Or, yeah. There you go. Perfect.
Thank you. I got there. Hi, everyone. I just want to, so my name is Megan Gergen. I am the Manager of Public Affairs and Communications at Journey Center for Safety and Healing. I've been with the organization for around 15 years, we'll say that. And I just want to say thank you, Lakewood, thank you all for recognizing this important issue. You know, we hear the statistic all the time, 1 in 4 women, 1 in 7 men will experience some form of domestic violence. What I think is so important to point out about that statistic is that it's severe physical violence. That statistic doesn't necessarily account for digital abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse that folks experience, and that they experience in our community. We served in the last fiscal year over 22,000 individuals. Looking through Lakewood, folks that gave us their address, you know, we are a confidential organization. We served over 600 residents in Lakewood County, over 200 through the civil and the court system, navigating that domestic violence. And so knowing that they are not alone, we are here, you all are here starting these conversations. You all are here, probably didn't expect to hear me tonight, but now you know the importance of talking about domestic violence, talking about, hey, this lady came, she talked for a couple minutes, what is a healthy relationship to you? What does that look like? What are those red flags, and how can you help? Because I think they said something about that 24-hour helpline. So I just want to again say thank you for doing this. The 16 days starts with the International Day of Violence Against Women, ends with Human Rights Day, because it does impact everyone. I'll end with one of the hashtags and one of the campaigns we say often is everyone knows someone. We often think it happens to those folks, it happens to other people that we don't know, but the reality is, unfortunately, everyone in this room knows someone who's been impacted by domestic violence or an unhealthy relationship. So again, thank you for having this conversation. Thank you for this resolution. It is so important. So thank you.
Thank you. And that number again was 216-391-4357. All right. Any further discussion? We do have a ceremonial copy of the resolution, so Megan, if you want to come up, we'd like to present that to you. And any other members of the public who'd like to join, we'll take a picture down front with. Yeah, sorry, we didn't actually vote. We did the motion and second. So we have a motion and second to adopt the resolution. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passed.
Where's that button?
Item 19, Ordinance 23, 2024, an ordinance to take effect immediately declaring improvement to real property within the city of Lakewood to be a public purpose, exempting such improvement from real property taxation, requiring the owners of the property to make service payments in lieu of real property taxes, establishing an urban redevelopment tax increment equivalent fund for the deposit of service payments, making related authorizations pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, and authorizing a service payment agreement in connection with the same.
Thank you. So this was just a reminder to council members, members of the public. This item was on the last full council meeting docket and was deferred so that we could discuss it in more detail tonight. So Director Byington, do you want to turn it? So we'll have a presentation. And this item is also connected to item 20, which we'll talk about afterwards.
Thank you, Madam President and members of council. I will run through my presentation, but we also have Drew Siley here with Liberty Common Development, LDC, also to give you an update on the project. So as you all might recall, you approved a development agreement on June 10th of this year in regard to the rehabilitation of the two Board of Education buildings. And what's before you today is a proposed ordinance to establish a TIF district, as well as a resolution to amend CRA number 1, which is a citywide CRA, and to establish a new CRA, which would be called the Warren Road Community Reinvestment Area. Some of these slides you'll see I purposely put back in here. They're from the original development agreement presentation. So before you is the project site, which includes 1456 and 1470 Warren Road. These are some historic pictures that were shown. Rockport School, which is 1456 Warren, which has approximately 10,000 square feet, and the old Grant School at 1470 Warren, which has approximately 25,000 square feet. And this is how they look today. Per the development agreement, there were to be two phases. The first phase was the north building, the 10,000 square feet, to be redeveloped into offices. This has been completed. And now the developer is looking to move into phase 2 in the south building, which is renovation of 25,000 square feet. And they're looking for the option through the CRA to do either residential or commercial. The total investment remains the same from the development agreement, which is $8.9 million. Within that development agreement, the city promised certain things, and one of them was to establish a CRA district, which would provide a 15-year, 75% commercial and a 100% residential tax abatement opportunity through the district. Also, the city was to establish a 30-year, 100% non-school tax increment financing district, and for the public, the non-school TIF would mean that service payments would be made to the school for any increased taxes generated off the higher value of the property, so that way it doesn't impact the school. Also, in the development agreement, there was an acknowledgement of a separate $500,000 loan agreement to support energy efficiency improvements and rehabilitation of the historic buildings, and this was approved also by City Council, and the loan agreement has been issued. So the need for Liberty Common to have the CRA and the TIF remain the same from the development agreement. It allows for the preservation and adaptive reuse and construction of the buildings, which is hard to do due to the inflated construction and labor costs and the high interest rates. The project will result in again, the preservation and reuse of these structures, and the developer has said that the local incentive assistance is required to be able to complete the project. So this slide just represents what was in the development agreement. On the left in the red is what is completed. It was the economic development loan at $500,000, $300,000 deferred 0% and $200,000 to be forgiven. This allowed or provided additional cash flow to the developer early on. What's before you today is the establishment of the CRA. So the existing CRA 1 is citywide, and this legislation before you today will remove 2 parcels within the site from the existing CRA and will create the new Warren Road CRA, which will allow for abatement for 15 years following completion with, again, 75% commercial abatement that would need to be approved through an agreement by City Council, and 100% residential abatement, which does not have to go before City Council, but application has to be made to the housing officer. And to date, no application has been filed, but it is forthcoming on the larger parcel. Also, the tax increment financing district would cover both parcels, and this, again, would be the non-school taxes, a 30-year term. However, the first initial 15 years would be subordinate to a CRA agreement, assuming one is approved for the larger site. So legislation for this project in general, so there was an approval of the development agreement. There was an approval of the transfer of the land to be eligible for the TIF district. That has occurred and the deeds have been recorded. And then before you tonight is the approval of the TIF district and the creation of the Warren Road CRA. What would be coming before you in the future is if the developer decides to move forward with a commercial use in the property on the larger parcel, then there would need to be a CRA agreement brought before you to approve. So in general, for the public, in regard to the difference between a TIF and a CRA, the tax increment financing, it would provide, again, the school would still have all of the taxes that they would have on the base, as well as the future taxes generated on the property. The developer would be responsible for paying the base tax plus any of the additional tax that would be generated if there were not a TIF, but they're not paying the taxes as a tax. It would be a service payment, but they're paying what would equate to the total amount of the taxes that would be due. And then those would be deposited into a fund, the Warren Road TIF fund, and the city would reimburse the developer for expenses related to the project. And it's important to know that the baseline taxes would remain and would be paid to all taxing entities. So I went over a little bit of this already in regard to the CRA creation, so I won't go over it again. This is an illustration that you have probably seen in the past from Director Leiniger. It just shows how the taxes, or how the CRA and the TIF, kind of layer upon each other. So again, for the both parcels would have a TIF on them, and if one parcel has a commercial agreement, a tax abatement through the CRA approved, then that agreement would take precedent for the first 15 years, and then years 16 through 30, the TIF would be remaining, but the CRA would be dissolved. And this just shows the existing property value. Total valuation at market value is $638,500. Currently, the taxes are only generated are only $24,199. And then these were presented previously, so I'm not going to go into detail with them because they're just really for illustration to show how the taxes would be split up and how the share would go to the school and the total amount that would be abated. However, the project is different now because there's not 2 parcels that will be abated through the CRA. There's only one. And the end use of the larger parcel is unknown because it could be commercial or residential. So this is just illustrative purposes only, as is this last slide. And like I said, Drew Siley is here to go over the project, kind of give you an update on where he is right now, where they are, and answer any of your questions.
Thank you. Welcome, Drew.
Thank you. Thanks to members of council, mayor. the administration. Thank you, Director Byington, for walking through the presentation and helping us get to where we are today. So I thought this was a nice opportunity to not only say thank you again to Council for your partnership and to the administration, but kind of the essential nature of that support we received. You know, the development agreement that we negotiated earlier in the year and that was approved by Council gave us an excellent foundation to start the north building, the first phase of this project, and go into converting that into an office space. And for those folks keeping score at home, it's worth noting that the property never paid taxes for 140 years because it was publicly owned, and as soon as our company acquired it, we've been paying taxes all the way along. These are two of the most important cultural, historic resources in the community. They're foundational to the educational history of the community, as you know, and that's why you partnered with us to turn it into something great. What those tax incentives do, and this last step in executing these final ordinances so the TIF district and the CRA can be in place, put us in a position to make these buildings completely energy efficient, preserve the historic character, and create new opportunities for businesses to locate in the downtown district. It's a great location, literally at First and Main of Lakewood's downtown, and we have parking. So we took this out to the market. It allowed us to have at least a minimal cash flow so that the project was sustainable through the first 10 years. Our company, as I've shared before with Council, is a build and hold developer. So in order to make these historic conversions work, you have to take a 20-year view at least for it to make sense. We also need to be able to renovate it so that our rents are competitive with the market. And I can tell you happily today that it worked, and it worked well. So as of 2 weeks ago, we're fully leased on the building. So thank you for that. So we acquired 2 new companies from out of the city. Food commodities brokerage from Westlake relocated to Lakewood. We have an interior design firm that relocated to Lakewood. We have a benefits management company that was here and looking to grow, but couldn't quite find the space they wanted that moved in. And that we have another company that's going to be moving in at the 1st of March. And I'll keep my powder dry on that and let them make their announcements here right in the new year. So that formula worked, that partnership worked. We were able to convert this building to something great, and we're going to apply those same principles to the south building, which is much larger and is a bigger project. And that's why we asked, even early on from Council, the flexibility to be able to look at it as either a residential conversion or an office conversion. We had a pretty good sense that the market was strong enough to lease about 8,300 square feet in that north building. We had such a nice response for folks who were very bullish on Lakewood and interested in being here and interested in the kind of offering we were putting out there, that we're taking a serious look at the south building also for being office. So that's why we asked for some of that flexibility. But most importantly, we made good on our commitments in that development agreement so far. Our timeline commitment was to deliver the building to be complete by the end of August 2024. We received our certificate of occupancy on August 6th, so we got in there just ahead of schedule. And for having completed the project just a few months ago and to be fully leased at this point is a remarkable feat, and you were all a big part of that. So I wanted to say thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions Council may have. So,
Thank you. Colleagues, questions for either Director Byington or Mr. Siley? Councilman Rader.
Thank you, former director and current director, for bringing this forward so we can finish through what we started here. Director Byington, you mentioned something at the last meeting about needing to complete this year because the property tax evaluations will take effect next year. Do we have a sense for what next year's evaluation is for that property and sort of what the difference is? And is that truly what reason why we're need to move this so quickly? You know, we just spent a long time working out this TIF for the larger city-owned land project. No, it's completely different, and this is something that we've already agreed to early on, but it's something that I certainly want to just get a better understanding of the timeline here and sort of what the, I guess, difference is waiting till the first of the year to move forward.
Through you, Madam President. As I stated at the last meeting, part of the push was that the city, through the development agreement, was to move forward with these, with the creation of the TIF and the CRA district, I believe within 45 days of the actual approval of the development agreement. So we were behind on that. So that's part of the reason that we were trying to push forward. And I'll let Mr. Siley speak a little bit to the concern on possible increase in valuations and why it's important to his group to move forward before the end of the year.
Thank you, Council President. Councilman Rader, it's a fair question. Part of what our concern always is the, for lack of a better way to phrase it, the unpredictability and how the county is going to put valuations on properties. We've seen that kind of all over the map, and we can't really clock what a consistent projection would be on that based on what we've seen on other valuations, especially when you're looking at a renovation of this scale. I mean, it was a complete redo of the building. So we know where we stand today. We just don't know what the years ahead will bring.
That's fair. And are we anticipating voting on this tonight, Madam President?
I was not expecting to.
Okay, maybe there's a chance we can get together and just kind of look at the financials, if that's fine with you, Ms. Byington or Director Siley, just so I have a better understanding before I make a vote on this. But I'd very much appreciate it. Thank you for being here. I'm looking forward to seeing this project to completion, certainly. Thank you.
Thank you. I just had, on that same line, was there not a concern about historic tax, or historic preservation credits, that was part of the push to get it through this year?
So again, it's a few layers of things that a delay is challenging for us in a number of ways. One, it's protecting our where we know where we stand today on the tax valuation of the property, the conditions in the development agreement, asking the city, setting a timeline for the city to perform on it in a timely manner, and then also related to the certification of our historic tax credits. In order to pursue those, we had to propose to the state, and was confirmed by the city, that the city was in fact financially supporting the project through this legislation. So that was part of the metric for our scoring. So again, we need to demonstrate that those things have been completed as part of our historic tax credit certification.
Thank you. And as I recall, too, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as I recall, when we got the proposals for this this property, that Liberty was the only developer that proposed preserving the historic buildings. Am I remembering that correctly?
You're remembering that very correctly,
Okay.
and I appreciate you bringing that up. And so we had pitched that idea to the Board of Education about buying the property from them and leasing a portion of it back to them until they found their forever home for their offices. Unfortunately, at the time, they liked the idea, but they had to take it out to public bid. It was the same time that the Lakewood Hospital site was also going out to bid originally, and so we ended up competing with a number of other developers, both locally and from out of the Northeast Ohio area. And of, I think, the 5 of us that were selected to present, we were the only company that proposed saving the buildings. Everyone else wanted to repurpose the 1 3/4 acres as a redevelopment site.
Thank you. Questions from other council members? Nothing? All right. Yep. Councilman Bowe.
Mr. President. Thank you, Council President. My questions are just a series of clarifying questions. Director Byington, could we go to the slide where there's red text on the left and white text on the right that says request, or I guess it's the council staff, just to make sure I've got a clear handle on what the proposal is today compared to what we took action earlier in the year, building, the north building's complete. Now we're talking about the south building and an adjustment. The proposal is to make adjustments to the CRA and the TIF financing. So I want to just make sure I have that clear and straight. So this on the right, the white text summarizes what the proposed legislation would do, correct?
Correct.
And that is to make adjustments to the CRA for reasons I'd love to hear restated and clarified, because I know we've got an underlying CRA, so there's some advantage to the new proposed CRA. And then secondly, the part that's hanging me up is I think we already have in place a 75% commercial abatement as well as 100% residential for the first 15 years. What's the proposal tonight, or before us tonight? Is it also to add the 30-year non-school TIF for both, right, for commercial and residential, or would the 30-year TIF be only residential?
Go ahead, Director Byington.
Through you, Madam President. So the existing CRA that's citywide, there is a 100-unit requirement to be able to utilize that.
Okay.
So this new CRA will allow an abatement through the CRA with the units less than that. Nothing has actually changed as far as the development and what was to be planned and what was proposed or promised by the city in the original development agreement. We're just now taking action. So, but the reason that the CRA is important is because it does provide for commercial abatement and for abatement on units that are less than 100. And then the TIF, I believe there's no difference in what was always proposed with the TIF as well. So
Okay.
again, the advantage from the abatement is lesser units and commercial.
So the time, thank you, and Madam President, so the concept here is the timing is that the south building is the one that could have residential. The north building was all commercial. So you had what you needed for that phase of the development.
So, Madam President, if I might address it. So to kind of boil it down to its essence, nothing has changed since what was approved by council. All of these conditions, these terms were agreed to and approved by council in the development agreement in June. All this is, candidly, is a perfunctory step to pass the legislation that was already agreed to so that it can be filed with the state of Ohio so that these incentives, which were approved months ago, can be put into effect.
Okay.
It's the last step in that train. So nothing's changed. This is the same TIF. This is the same CRA we articulated earlier in the year and the essential nature of those. The financials are the same projection. My earlier statements was it's essential and it worked, and we hope to do more of the same. And so we had the same idea for the south building even back in the spring when we were talking about this. So again, this is just taking that last step, asking council to act on the legislation that you already approved in June. It's the final step.
And one final question. On the next slide, there's a green bullet at the bottom. Hypothetical future proposed resolution, approval of a CRA agreement would come, that proposal isn't before us tonight, that would potentially come early next year or something like that too. Do I have that correct?
Through you, Madam President. Yes, the green is if the developer decides to do commercial for the south building, then a CRA agreement would need to be approved by City Council.
Okay.
If the decision is to do residential, then there would be no agreement brought to City Council.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for clarifying that. I hope I didn't make everybody unnecessarily repeat what was said before, but for those of us who are not tax attorneys and daily practitioners in developments, and perhaps even for the benefit of the public record here, that I found it helpful. I guess my concluding point would be, I know I see members of the public here have raised legitimate questions on other developments about tax fairness and the use of TIFs for financing projects like this. I guess I'm supportive of the use of these tools for this project, and I would like to point out that the historic preservation component here is something that the community wanted. The school board wanted. The school board originally owned this. The city became a kind of a custodian of the properties as part of the transfer of these from school board ownership to public redevelopment by a private company. All of that makes sense to preserve historic property and preserve the character and then also update and reinvest in it comes at a price tag. So I think that part of the rationale behind making that investment. At the same time, I do understand the point that with rising costs, inflation, rising valuations, residents of Lakewood are also seeing their costs go up. So it's certainly a legitimate concern to raise, and it's part of our job to do our best to balance those things. So, anyway, thank you.
And the next item on the docket, item 20, is the resolution that would create the CRA. So we're kind of talking about these two things together in this discussion time now, but there's the two different components, and then the to be named resolution if necessary. Other questions from council members?
Madam President, may I
go
have
ahead.
one more clarifying
Sure.
point quickly? And I think it's a fair reminder, and, you know, we're happy to answer the questions and walk through it, because this is complicated stuff for sure, and it's been a longer journey on this. But some of the trade-offs in this also were, for the benefit of those tax incentives that we're receiving and preserving these historic assets, we also gave the city a position that you ultimately have the opportunity to control the property if we don't make good on our commitments. So through the loan, you're a lien holder. There's also stipulations in the development agreement that if we don't pay our taxes, for example, the city can actually step in and take possession of the property. So looking at those opportunities to preserve these historic assets, that the city has some hammers in here, that if we're not making good on our commitments and protecting these assets and being good stewards of those public dollars, you have recourse. So I think that's an important consideration in why we struck the deal we did. So you were giving us some benefit on the tax side, but we were also giving up some control on our property, and I think that's a fair exchange.
Thank you. So, council members, I'm going to, we have another full council meeting scheduled for this year, so I will make a motion to defer ordinance 23-2024.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Vice President Baker.
Thank you, Council President. And as seems to be, we have a lot of these in this month, but as an employee, full-time employee for a publicly, for a property tax funded organization, it's best to remove the appearance of a conflict of interest, so I will be abstaining from this vote.
Thank you. And council members, I'll just add that, you know, normally we would have more of this dialogue in Committee of the Whole, but our Committee of the Whole dance card is full this time of year with budget and downtown development. So, but I don't think it's a terrible thing to have this on the public floor either, so that more members of the public can be aware and see it. So I do encourage you, though, to reach out to Director Byington or Mr. Siley, members of the administration, if you have questions between now and our December 16th meeting. So thank you, Mr. Siley, for being here. All right, so we have a motion and a second to defer. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
And that motion passes.
Item 20, Resolution 2024-73, a resolution to take effect immediately, amending ordinance number 5804 as amended and updated by Resolution 2019-08 in order to remove certain real property from Community Reinvestment Area Number 1 and establishing and describing the boundaries of the Warren Road Community Reinvestment Area in the city of Lakewood.
Move to defer.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion. As we just discussed, this is connected to the ordinance 23-2024. And again, same thing. We will be taking this up on the 16th, so please make sure to reach out with questions about that. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Abstain.
And that motion passes. All right, well, back up to the top.
Item 1, report from Committee of the Whole held today, December 2nd, 2024.
Members of council, Committee of the Whole met earlier this evening with two main items on the agenda. One was to identify which of the 12 candidates who applied for the soon-to-be vacant at-large seat that council will interview. Those interviews coming up in January. Without objection, the following names, the clerks were instructed to invite the following candidates for interviews. Those candidates are Allison Urbanik, Angelina Steiner, Angela Klunk, Nicole Greenfield, Alexandra Bonacuse, and Becky Makovic. The other items on the agenda were related to the downtown development. We had a brief public presentation and then adjourned into executive session for more detailed conversation about those documents. Upon exiting, we made a motion to instruct the clerks to update those pieces of legislation with the updated exhibits when we receive them. Move to receive and file that oral report.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 2, Ordinance 20-2024, An ordinance to amend Section 110502 of the zoning code of the codified ordinances by changing and revising the zoning map of the city with respect to certain property as set forth and described collectively as the Downtown Development Project, 14519 Detroit Avenue, from C2 or R1H to PD.
Move to defer.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Abstain.
And that motion passes.
Item 3, Ordinance 21, 2024, an ordinance authorizing a development agreement with Casto Incorporated, an Ohio corporation, in connection with the redevelopment of certain real property in the city of Lakewood as part of a tax increment financing program under Ohio Revised Code.
Move to defer.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? We do have a member of the public here to speak, so Mr. Zachem, if you want to come up, you know the drill. Welcome back.
Hello, I'm Micah Zachem again, same as last time. During all the discussions for the downtown development, I've mentioned to council, also to many of my neighbors, anyone who passes by and is willing to listen, that this project, as well as some of the other projects in Lakewood, makes the public vulnerable to school tax levies, since the developer isn't necessarily paying their full share. And my understanding at this point is the school board is planning on asking for a tax increase in 2026. So it seems to me that these concerns are coming true. And, you know, again, if I step back and I take a look at the project, the developers who are well off, the bondholders who are well off will benefit, and Lakewood homeowners that have invested in the community for years are going to suffer with potential tax increases. And to be clear, I have absolutely nothing against the developer. My background before becoming a full-time landlord was I worked in commercial real estate, so that more or less used to be me. And I'm concerned that affordable housing is a very poor choice of words. In my opinion, the better term should be affordable permanent housing. I can tell you, as all my time as a landlord, I have yet to meet a tenant that didn't want to own their own home, and that's been true whether the tenant is on the low end of the income spectrum or the tenants that I work with that are, you know, fortunate enough to be more middle class. And we all know with property taxes going up that it's becoming harder and harder. And I definitely support affordable permanent housing, but what's proposed does zero to make housing affordable. And I, based on my experience in Lakewood, I would be absolutely shocked if anyone who qualifies for a temporary affordable housing is able to purchase a home in Lakewood. My tenants that have been in my single bedroom apartments that rent for about $800-900, they've never purchased a house in Lakewood. Some have gone on to purchase a house, but not here. And I would also point out, based on last meeting, that to Lakewood, for most council members, and I assume the administration, that it's important to make Lakewood a city for, I don't know what the politically correct term is these days. I'll just call it, for those who don't have a traditional lifestyle, to make Lakewood accommodating for those. And I would point out that doesn't do any good if those that fall under that category can't afford a home in Lakewood. Some of my tenants that have gone on to buy houses would be much more comfortable staying in Lakewood, but yet they purchase elsewhere because ultimately, their wallets control what they can afford, regardless of what their political or social beliefs may be. And if that's really important to Lakewood, I think the city needs to take a long and hard look about making permanent housing more affordable, not just making a few apartments temporarily cheaper.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, I appreciate it. Yeah, our clock is, that's part of our technical difficulties, it's counting up. So normally it counts down. So if you come up to do public comment, when you see it click 10, that's actually the end of your 5 minutes. So we'll get it straightened out for our next meeting. But Mayor George.
Madam President, thank you. I just want to clarify one thing that was stated regarding the school district and their proposed levy for the next couple years. The school district has done a great job and stretched their previously levy out a number of years, which is truly to the benefit of all the taxpayers here in Lakewood. So they have a planned levy in the next couple years. So I just want to be crystal clear that there's zero correlation between the downtown development and any upcoming levying. That would be a standard levy that the school district would be proposing. So I just want to make sure we address that.
We don't typically do back and forth because it gets out of hand pretty quickly. So, but I'm sure Mayor George would be happy to talk with you afterwards. Or if you want to sign in again for public comment at the end, I'll be. All right, so that's the only public comment we have on this item. We have a motion and a second to defer. Any further discussion from council members? All right, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 4, ordinance 22, 2024, an ordinance to take effect immediately, authorizing the mayor to execute a compensation agreement between the City of Lakewood and the Lakewood City School District.
Move to defer.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 5, report from Finance Committee held November 25th, 2024.
Councilman Bullock.
Thank you, Madam President. The Finance Committee met with all members of the committee present and indeed all members of council present on November 25th. And we had in-depth conversation and heard presentations from a number of different departmental leaders as part of our continued work through our full agenda, our full docket of departments and financial matters to review prior to final votes on budget legislation, which we expect in 2 weeks. We heard specifically from the Public Works Department Director and his team, as well as regarding the capital plan. We heard from both chiefs in public safety, and we also talked, I'm blanking without the notes in front of me on what the other departments were, but we had, I think, a thorough and informative discussion. So we look forward to another round of that in a week's time. Move to receive and file that oral report.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes. Now the next several items are all related to the annual budget, so I'll move to suspend the rules to read items 6 through 18 together.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. I believe we need a roll call? No, or we can just do by, okay. So motion been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes, and good luck.
Item 6, ordinance 25, 2024, an ordinance to take effect immediately to establish appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Lakewood for fiscal year ending December 31st, 2024. Item 7, ordinance 26, 2024, an ordinance to take effect immediately authorizing the transfer in advance of certain funds. Item 8, ordinance 27, 2024, an ordinance to take effect immediately to establish appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Lakewood for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2025. Item 9, ordinance 28, 2024, an ordinance to take effect immediately authorizing the mayor, the Director of Public Works, the Director of Law, the Director of Finance, and/or Purchasing Manager to enter into contracts for professional services and to advertise for bids and enter into contracts for the purchase of repair, maintenance, and operating supplies, services, and equipment as authorized by the 2025 Appropriation Ordinance and the Administrative Code of the City with the lowest and best bidder or bidders or as otherwise provided by law. Item 10, ordinance 29, 2024, an ordinance to take effect immediately, authorizing and directing the mayor, the Director of Public Works, the Director of Law, the Director of Finance, and/or Purchasing Manager to enter into contracts in accordance with the Administrative Code of the City for vehicles, machinery, and equipment, contracts not to exceed the specified amount shown without separate resolution of council. Item 11, ordinance 30, 2024, an ordinance to take effect immediately authorizing and directing the mayor, the Director of Public Works, the Director of Law, the Director of Finance, and/or Purchasing Manager to enter into contracts in accordance with the Administrative Code for buildings and facilities improvements, contracts not to exceed the specified amount shown without separate resolution of council. Item 12, ordinance 31, 2024, an ordinance to take effect immediately authorizing and directing the mayor, the Director of Public Works, the Director of Law, the Director of Finance, and/or Purchasing Manager to enter into contracts in accordance with the Administrative Code for parks and pools improvements, contracts not to exceed the specified amounts shown without separate resolution of council.
Item 13, ordinance 32-2024, an ordinance to take effect immediately authorizing and directing the mayor, Director of Public Safety, the Director of Public Works, the Director of Law, the Director of Finance, and/or the Purchasing Manager to enter into contracts in accordance with the Administrative Code of the City of Lakewood for Sidewalk Improvement Program, contracts not to exceed the specified amount shown without separate resolution of council. Item 14, ordinance 33-2024, an ordinance to take effect immediately authorizing and directing the mayor, Director of Public Safety, the Director of Public Works, the Director of Law, the Director of Finance, and/or the Purchasing Manager to enter into contracts in accordance with the Administrative Code of the City of Lakewood for traffic signs and signals, contracts not to exceed the specified amount shown without separate resolution of council. Item 15, ordinance 34-2024, an ordinance to take effect immediately authorizing and directing the mayor, the Director of Public Works, the Director of Law, the Director of Finance, and/or the Purchasing Manager to enter into contracts in accordance with the Administrative Code of the City of Lakewood for street infrastructure improvements, contracts not to exceed the specified amount shown without separate resolution of council. Item 16, ordinance 35-2024, an ordinance to take effect immediately authorizing and directing the mayor, the Director of Public Works, the Director of Law, the Director of Finance, and/or the Purchasing Manager to enter into contracts in accordance with the Administrative Code of the City of Lakewood for water system replacement program, contracts not to exceed the specified amount shown without separate resolution of council. Item 17, ordinance 36-2024, an ordinance to take effect immediately authorizing and directing the mayor, the Director of Public Works, the Director of Law, the Director of Finance, and/or the Purchasing Manager to enter into contracts in accordance with the Administrative Code of the City of Lakewood for wastewater system and treatment improvement program, contracts not to exceed the specified amount shown without separate resolution of council. Item 18, ordinance 37-2024, an ordinance to take effect immediately authorizing the mayor, the Director of Public Works, the Director of Law, the Director of Finance, the Director of Planning and Development, and/or the Purchasing Manager to enter into a service contract for the Department of Planning and Development in accordance with the Administrative Code of the City of Lakewood. Contracts not to exceed the specified amount shown without separate resolution of council.
I will move to defer items 6 through 18.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion. Just for members of the public, again, these items are already in Finance Committee, so that's where all that discussion is happening about them and will continue to happen at our next meeting. So hence why we're deferring them tonight. All right, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 21, ordinance 24, 2024, an ordinance to take effect January 1st, 2025, to provide for creating positions and rates of pay for full-time and certain part-time annual salaried employees and hourly rate employees not covered by a collective bargaining agreement in the several departments, divisions, and offices of the city, including the Chief of Fire, Chief of Police, and Civil Service Commissioners, and superseding any prior salary ordinances.
Move to defer.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. That's okay. Yeah, doubly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 23, communication from President Keppel regarding council appointments to the Animal Safety and Welfare Advisory Board.
Dear colleagues, this letter serves to make official the following reappointments to the Lakewood Animal Safety and Welfare Advisory Board as listed. Because of the longstanding service and leadership of these members, LaSwab is one of the city's most active and engaged volunteer boards. Please join me in congratulating all members on the reappointments and wishing them all the best for another meaningful and productive term of service on LaSwab. Move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 24, report from Lakewood Alive bi-monthly meeting from Vice President Baker.
Vice President Baker.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, as you know, I'm the ex officio member of council on the Lakewood Alive Board, and I'd like to provide these updates of the recent meeting. The Lakewood Alive Board of Directors met on November 20th at the Lakewood Public Library for its bi-monthly meeting. The meeting kicked off with a discussion about the recent request from Casto, the developer of the downtown development, to partner with Lakewood Alive on the downtown development site public space with regards to programming. The ex officio city officials on the Lakewood Alive Board, Mayor George, Director Byington, and myself, recused ourselves from those discussions. The various committees then gave reports. The highlight was when the Development Committee shared news that the corporate donations had exceeded the 2024 goals with the recent one-time gifts from Rise and the Cypre distribution from Dworkin and Bernstein. There were also recaps of a successful Spooky Pooch Parade and Chocolate Walk. Council members looking forward to get more involved with and support Lakewood Alive can attend the Light Up Lakewood on December 7th, which I will be there with my kids, an upcoming Dine to Donate event at Dewey's Pizza on December 17th, the annual Loving Lakewood event scheduled for February 22nd, or talk with me about joining the committee or participating in a volunteer project to help a homeowner. For a full list of Lakewood Alive's upcoming events, please subscribe to their weekly newsletter. Sincerely, Kyle Baker. Motion to receive and file the communication.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? I just want to express my appreciation for keeping us informed. Earlier this year, we set a more formal structure for council members to be liaisons into community organizations and report back to us, and helps us stay informed about what's going on. So appreciate that. Motion's been made and seconded to receive and file. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 25, communication from Director Byington regarding Healthy Lakewood Foundation grant for tree giveaway.
Director Byington.
Thank you, Madam President, members of council. The legislation is requesting authorization to accept a grant for $7,500 to be used on the tree giveaway program in 2025. 200 trees were given away in 2024. It was a very popular program. My understanding is it went like within an hour, or less. So the goal with this new money and the budgeted money already would be to give away 400 trees in 2025.
Thanks. Move to receive and file the communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? This is excellent. This program has been really great in helping us. One of the areas where we've been focusing on trying to increase private planting to increase our urban tree canopy, and this has been a very successful program, so we appreciate the support.
Madam Chair?
Yep, Councilman.
Madam President, rather. I do have one question here. I also support this program. Thank you for your consistent investment in this council and administration. Are we having Public Works plant the trees and plant them properly? Because that's been a feature, and I think that's been a very welcome and quality control feature that helps in the past. I'm not clear from the letter, so I thought I'd ask. Thanks.
Thank you. Director Gordon. I think I know the answer, but I'll let you respond.
Well, go ahead. If you would like to answer, you're more than welcome.
Well, no, this is the tree giveaway program, right? This is the one where they come pick them up?
Correct. This is the resident tree giveaway program. So Public Works will not be doing any plantings on private properties in regards to this program. This is just the resident tree giveaway program.
Madam Chair, Madam President, follow-up. Maybe I'm confusing a different program where I remember buying a house and purchasing the city planted actually 2 trees and then also planted a tree lawn tree. So there is a different program then where I can get a good price on a tree and the city crews will come out and do it if I sign an easement?
The city crews would, and our contractor would, that does the tree planting program, that's performed on resident tree lawns and city properties and things of that nature. That would be performed by them. This is a completely different program.
Okay. Sorry for the confusion, but glad
No
to
worries.
hear about it.
Councilmember Rader.
Yeah, as the ex officio on this board, I think still maybe till the end of the year. I just want to thank the board for the hard work. I've attended a couple of these tree giveaways right across the street from my house. And to Mr. Bullock's point as well, it's incredibly important that folks know how to plant trees and take care of them. They do a little training, do a tree planting demonstration, as well as the giveaway. They used gator bags from the city. So there's some equipment that come with the trees to help them water and maintain them. But it might be good, it might be worth following up now we're a couple of years in to see how folks are doing with those trees. I know that the focus next year will be also to target areas of the city that are underserved and areas that are less treed somehow by how they target their marketing and stuff for this program. So 400 is a lot, it's a doubling. But I'm absolutely certain the board has a plan and has it in them to get this done. And I just want to really thank the administration and the board for putting this together. Thank you, Madam President.
Sure. Director Gordon, you look like you're interested
Sure.
to respond.
Thank you, Council President. Yeah, so Public Works will still be involved with the tree giveaway program. The dates that get selected for the program itself, we will make sure that the Forestry Department, City Arborist, Urban Forester, all of those that are able to attend will. The plan would be is to be there and present and go through any demonstrations necessary on proper tree planting and things of that nature.
Thank you. Yeah, this has really been a tremendous partnership with the Tree Advisory and Education Board and the administration, and council members supported this too. It's a really cool program where residents can actually sign up and use the software of the Arbor Day Foundation to take a look at their properties, identify which size, what kind of tree would do well there, how much canopy it would create over a certain period of years, and select the tree accordingly, and been very popular. So excited to see it. All right, so we have a motion and a second to receive and file the communication. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and that motion passes. All right, so we are now at public comment. We have a number of folks signed in to speak. Welcome. So I'll just take these in order. So our first one is Teresa Permenter, sorry, it looks like an S. I should know that. So, welcome, you saw the drill, push the button, when it turns green, you can talk, and you'll have 5 minutes, but it's going to count up, so.
All right. So, Madam President, me and my neighbors are concerned about the traffic on the Lewis, Waterbury, Chesterland Parkway area. I live on Parkway, and we've been affected by, the constructions lately, and that has reduced some of the traffic that comes through, but once that construction is complete, I think we all have concerns about the traffic and the speeding that happens through that area, especially on Lewis. I think St. Ed's students use our streets as like a main highway to get to school. It makes sense. Some of the concerns that we have, or as a mother, I want my kids to be able to cross a street in an appropriate area. So I don't believe that Lewis has good sidewalks or crosswalks that are conducive to little kids. So I propose, or whatever, to have more consideration for crosswalks.
Thank you. All right. Next up, we have David Senroger? Yeah, and feel free to correct me when you come up, please do.
No problem at all. You did very well. Whoops. I've been a resident on Parkway Drive for 30 years, so, and we love Lakewood. We moved here from California years ago. Our son was a figure skater, so we took advantage of the Camelot days of Winterhurst back 15 years ago. I have a dog. My wife is deceased about 4 years ago, so I'm a single guy again, and wasn't a good single guy in the early days either. But I have a dog, and so we walk a lot up and down around Parkway, up and down Lewis. The concern that I've had always has been the traffic that dumps into St. Ed's, and the lack of cautiousness, especially when you see distracted drivers with some of the high school guys texting while they're driving. And it's a concern of some friends that we have that live right on Lewis. Also, and the street is great. We're glad that the weather held and they were able to get all that they finished by the end of the year, which they had projected and hoped to have done. And it really looks good. And the construction crews were very amiable in keeping us happy and making sure that that large equipment wasn't in our way. However, Parkway Drive, I think, has taken a beating with cement trucks and a lot of other things. So we'll see in the next few years whether that's going to have to speed up resurfacing of Parkway, because I see some, as I'm walking the dog, I see some cracks that I had not seen before. And I have to admit that some of those trucks I was concerned about as well. One other thing, too, I noticed a couple of areas, and I think Brittany will speak to this more specifically, but they've taken out some access to being able to cross Lewis safely now, and I'm concerned about that because you either have to go all the way down to, or all the way up to Franklin or all the way down to Detroit before you can cross safely because of where the two roads come together there, and I'm concerned about that, as well as access to the other side of the street up closer to Franklin. So there's some things I think, as they have done a good job in renovation, that we need to be a little concerned about moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, Brittany Brocker. Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Brittany Broker, and I live at 1480 Lewis. I have two beautiful boys, and I would like to thank Madam Mayor, the members of council, and the administrative staff for everything that you guys do for our community. So we live on Lewis in between Parkway and, in between Detroit and Franklin, just south of St. Ed's. And we have a unique situation there with a high concentration of young, inexperienced drivers who are more likely to speed than their female counterparts. And they're also the most likely group to be involved in traffic fatalities and injuries. The street is wide, which statistically encourages speeding and people, because people feel comfortable to do so. And unlike most of Lakewood, there's visibility issues, there's curvature, and there's hills. And we have a stop sign on Lewis, which is frequently rolled, and then there's a confusing traffic pattern at Chesterland and Lewis. And we hear fatal accidents there daily. There's no safe place to cross to get to the other side of Lewis, and there's been ramps that are removed. So when you're on bikes with little children, you're looking down at the curb instead of looking around for traffic. It actually removes a safety feature, and we were told previously that they were removed because they're not allowed to be there for an always stop, but because it makes it less safe, it's deleterious for the community and unsafe for children, especially for women on strollers. So the safety proposals that I would like implemented are a roundabout, and I received your email, and I know that you have previously looked into doing a roundabout there. There are roundabouts on Franklin. There are 55 feet in inscribed diameter, and the smallest diameter, at least in our area at the Chesterland intersection is 83 feet. And in my email, I did a little picture graph about the approach angles that would be possible there. And then we would also like an all-way stop at the northern intersection of Parkway and Lewis with a raised crosswalk, which also functions as a speed bump. The traffic calming program has been working with us, and they did get us a radar sign, but because we have a very unique situation, we need multiple interventions that will solve all of the issues to make it safe for children that are walking to school. And the lower part of Lewis is also misclassified as being ineligible for the traffic calming program. We're a walking community, and our children walk to school, and we need to invest in our community to make it safer for them to do that. And to meet these unique issues, and solve them, I would request that the mayor and a few of you meet with us. That way we can solve this as a community, and that way we can collaborate to finally get this addressed. Thank you for your time and your public service.
Thank you. Right, Jeremy Knob.
Thank you all for this opportunity to speak. I am also a resident of Parkway, but right on the edge of Lewis. So we are very grateful for the excellent road work that has occurred. As was previously mentioned, this is kind of giving us, we have a brand new racetrack at this point, basically. Lewis is a very unique, the winding curves, the multiple streets that join it. As Brittany mentioned, it is wide, which gives you a false sense of security as you're driving up it. Even as somebody who does it 2 to 3 times a day, it's very easy to kind of almost unconsciously speed because it is so wide and is such a nice windy road. As an owner of a dog, also as an avid walker myself, as they've mentioned, there is nowhere to cross the street. The crosswalks have been removed. You either have to cross at Detroit or Franklin, which is a very long stretch of road for multiple intersections. I would just like to request that it really be looked at to, you know, as Brittany mentioned, there's some different alternatives that might be out there. If it is the speed signs, if it is a speed hump, just something to improve the flow so that it is a lot less likely that somebody is coming down the road very quickly. In addition to the children that are driving, we also have St. Ed's parents that are driving down our street very speed aware and highly going down the road to get to school on time. So thank you for this opportunity to speak. Again, I just want to reiterate that we have a large group here. As you can see, we're all very passionate about this. I think it's obvious that there is some sort of issue, and we would really appreciate the city's help with helping the speed. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Tony Howard.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to speak, again, in solidarity and support for my neighbors here. Lifelong Lakewood resident myself, plan to be a lifelong Lakewood resident as well. Love the neighborhood, and it's just a burgeoning, family-oriented neighborhood. We've reinstated our block party, which had been dormant for some years, and I have a young cousin who goes to St. Ed's and who I've texted to stop flying down Lewis. We've seen some speed tables, speed humps pop up on neighboring streets, and that's been very encouraging, and I love to see that everywhere. And again, I just would like to see some of that perhaps considered for particularly Lewis down that big stretch. Again, the construction has been fabulous, but it does make it a bit of a raceway. So again, just in solidarity with my neighbors, and appreciate your time.
Thank you. All right, and then Alex Serban. Oh, thank you.
No problem. Hi, my name's Alex Serban-Walp. I live at 1477 Lewis Drive. I first want to echo the concerns about visibility, about traffic safety. It makes for a beautiful street to live on, but it also provides a lot of opportunities that haven't been taken up yet to put in safety measures, especially with all of the interesting intersection angles, let's say. You know, not a lot of right angles. So there's certainly several things that can be done that have already been mentioned. Speed tables, more stop signs put in. things like that. My mother-in-law is also a resident at 1510 Lewis Drive. And just to share an anecdote that illustrates some of the safety issues, in early October 2022, her parked car was totaled by a driver. She lives a little bit further down around the bend, and as they were coming around the bend, I think it seems they took the turn too wide, and I believe definitely ran into her car, I believe into multiple cars. So that's just kind of an illustrative story to show, what we're all talking about. Thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, and then Patrick Fischetti? Got one right, maybe.
We gave you a tough one. Patrick Fischetti, I live at 1536 Lewis Drive. I'm probably the furthest south of the neighbors that came out, and closest to Franklin. Thanks again for having us. I think my neighbors have hit a lot of the good points so far. It kind of benefited being down the list. But I guess I just wanted to hit on a couple things. I think in our just kind of Lewis Parkway pocket, we have, I think it counted 22 kids elementary age or younger, 5 born this year. We are single-handedly keeping Emerson's population high in lieu of all the school problems. All of us, I think, want this to be our kind of forever home. So we're very much invested in this location. I think, the kids, all of our friends were walking to and from school, we're walking to and from each other's houses, so we don't have the benefit of all being on the same side of the street, so it'd be great to have some of these crosswalks, speed tables, et cetera. I think the other thing, the coming south down Lewis, it's a very blind turn. You've got a hill, which much of Lakewood you don't have, and when you kind of pass that hill, you really can't see what's in front of you, so it's exceptionally dangerous, I think, for children. And you can't really prevent, control what these high school drivers, we're in between two high schools, one that's a commuter high school, pretty much solely via cars. Can't prevent or control any of their driving habits, but you can put in measures to keep safety and really prevent them from probably going above 25 miles an hour, which is, I think, where we're trying to keep it maintained. So thanks again for having us.
Thank you. All right, I think that's everyone that was signed in to speak on this topic. Go ahead, come on up. Just introduce yourself. And
Late arrival, apologies. Alex Lombardo, I'm at 1434 Lewis. How you doing? Good to see you. Congratulations. This is the third time I've addressed the council, not including the neighborhood construction project. We sound like a bit of a broken record, but we're here for a reason. It's bad enough to get me out of my warm house on a Monday night. But I will say one thing. Listening to some of the projects that are happening around Lakewood with the former school building, for those of us of a certain age who remember Bobson Hardware and how the footprint of St. Ed's, and this isn't a St. Ed's problem. I'm alluding to that it's a citywide problem. Every street needs speed bumps. Every street needs something to slow drivers down. I'm also an avid walker, and I walk down Elber, and I walk down Clarence and Chesterland. It's the same problems. It's the same gripes that everyone has. But I think what makes us unique is we've had this really extensive work done. The patient is open. This is a great opportunity to address some of the issues that plagues our street and the surrounding streets. And I think, again, because of how unique our street is, there are weird angles and intersections and stop signs, and other folks don't have stop signs. So it's confusing. And I do think now is the time. We've got a clean slate. We could invest a little bit of time just paying attention to the traffic problems, the flow of traffic, and I think making our street and our adjacent blocks safer for the commuters in our neighborhood. So again, thank you very much for listening to us and allowing a late person to chat. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And we do very much appreciate you all taking time out of your evening to be here and sit through the entire council meeting so that you can address us. It does tell us how important this is to you for sure, and it's important to us as well. Councilwoman Strubing.
Thank you. Thank you, President Keppel. Thank you, neighbors, for coming out again. And I really appreciate hearing from you on exactly how you live in your neighborhood. Because if you came over to Baxterly Avenue and I talked to you about a dip in the street, you'd be like, oh yeah, we got one of those too. So no one can tell us better how to live in our neighborhoods than the people that live there. And if there are safety concerns, I would echo Ms. Brocker's request for the administration to please meet with the residents there, with Director Byington, Director Gordon, if you need to bring in Mr. Papke to look at this neighborhood, because it's a different space there. And if we need to look at speed bumps that aren't usually put in this neighborhood because of the curves, then maybe we make an exception. And if we need to look at raising the crosswalks or simply installing a couple stop signs, I think that's an easy fix. And I regret the day that you have to come back and tell us about an accident. I really do. So good luck, and if it doesn't work, keep coming back. Thank you.
Vice President Baker.
Thank you, and thank you. I actually was at Ms. Broker's house, and so I know the neighborhood well. Our kids are friends. But I would say that there are other intersections in Lakewood that are similar that have had interventions. I'd point to Indianola and Hilliard, where they kind of dead-ended one thing and then made like a right-left at a stop sign to kind of stop that weird merge that happens. Then also, if you're familiar with Edgewater, where it hits Webb, it used to just kind of meander through there, but they actually kind of put a bump out in to create more 90s. So there is examples in Lakewood where we've done that now this is a different neighborhood, different geometry, but I do think there are creative things we can do, and I'm committed to working with Councilperson Strubing and you all and the administration to see that, because it is strange to say that you could be at on the west side of Lewis, and you'd have to go all the way to Detroit to technically cross safely at a kind of intersection. So that's odd that your friend as a kid could be across the street and it wouldn't be safe for you to go play with them. So whatever we can do, certainly we'll try to help. Thank you.
Councilman Boyle.
Thanks, Madam President. Thanks to the neighbors on Lewis. Ms. Broker, I think you know I've got in-laws that live in Lewis. Mr. Frischetti, I think right near you. I was there on Thanksgiving. And to the Public Works Department, boy, is it a beautifully resurfaced road surface. Thank you for that work. Same with Parkwood. After all the pardon our dust, we do get a very nice end result. I know in your case, the sidewalks are still disturbed from the laterals, so that project's not done. What we always hear is in Lakewood, there's potholes, 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 and then they get fixed, and then we have speeders. And that is no different, and probably more so for this neighborhood, which is really 3 streets coming off of Lewis and Detroit, because then it goes to Chesterland and Parkway and what is the other one I'm missing? Right. So for sure, all of that southbound Detroit traffic is going to cut through that major intersection there. So I empathize, and now we've got improved road conditions on a curvy street going downhill a little bit. I think what we do need to make use of the tools we have to improve the pedestrian conditions. That means traffic calming or speed calming and the other things too. Now, I appreciate the email a number of us received from Ms. Broker recently, which calls out in writing. That's actually quite helpful. A couple of the requested roadway improvements that we heard tonight. And if for some reason, as Councilwoman Striebeck said, we couldn't skin the cat this way, let's do it that way. I think the point is that we're hearing consistently, and I think I continue to hear council consistently interested in supporting solutions so that we're preserving the walking character and the safe character of our beautiful neighborhoods. City's doing the right thing to make reinvestments. But then on the back end of the construction, you know, it's not just construction, it's operation of the neighborhood. So if we could agree to work together on an informal basis and come up with solutions, let's do that. If we don't have an agreement, you know, I frankly would support City Council taking action to get solutions or adjust the criteria for a traffic calming program. And one final question on behalf of the gentleman from, was it Parkway or what? It was Parkway, I think. Do we have a pavement condition rating update on Parkway? Do we know whether that's imminent or down the line for Parkway resurfacing while we're here? Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Bullock, and thank you to the Lewis community. I don't have one off the top of my head right now. I would have to look up the pavement condition rating for Parkway.
Great. Other council members? Perhaps maybe we can get that Parkway rating. I know you guys keep a detailed list of that. Get that sent out. All right, so I expect we'll be hearing some follow-up from at least council members, and we really do appreciate y'all being here, so thank you. All right, and then I also have Mr. Zackham. Welcome back. Thanks for your patience and appreciating we have to follow decorum. So.
No problem. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but you know, my taxes are going up a third next year. From what I've seen, I don't think that's inconsistent with others in Lakewood. I don't think, whether it's planned or not, I don't think is relevant to have taxes go up a third and then to come back and ask for taxpayers for more money. I don't know a nice way of expressing that, but you know, the bottom line is, even if the school board needs something, that developer isn't paying their full share, and maybe the school board could have asked for fewer mills if it really needs something and is insane enough to ask for something, but it shouldn't matter whether it's planned or not. As a business person, you know, markets conditions change. The good businesses that you know, adapt to them and change as well, and the school board should too.
Thank you. All right, so that's everyone we have signed in for public comment. Not seeing anyone raise their hand okay, great. So we're at the end of public comments. Announcements from council members? Yeah. Yep, like Vice President Baker said, Light Up Lakewood this weekend. One of, I think, everybody's favorite reasons to live here, at least mine. So any announcements from the administration? No? All right, no further business before council. We're adjourned.